On the other hand, I also think people get too worried about having everything perfect before they launch, and it's important to just launch. One of the biggest challenges what is referred to as imposter syndrome. I think we tend to take for granted the things we're good at, and we think, oh, everybody can do that. And the truth is, everybody can't do that. Doing what I've done for 22 years in that other industry, I think I was really ready for a new challenge. And it was definitely a challenge. There's so little understanding going on in the world today. And I think if people would stop and listen and be a little bit more self-aware, at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to be able to replace human connection. I came up with the idea of wanting to.
Welcome to the Future Minds podcast.
Yeah. Welcome to Future Minds podcast. I have a very interesting guest today. So Elizabeth has over 20 years in people leadership and is the CEO and founder of XIXBI. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Getting through a week slowly but surely. But yeah, welcome today. Pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
No worries. Well, look, of course, I know it's a range of different areas we're going to go into, right? Your business, I think the business model, your story, and all the challenges you've come across the way. But I mean, first of all, just so anyone listening can get an understanding, I mean, how was it you started your career, and what's the journey to how you've got to, your position where you are today with your own company and leading a team of 300 people as well?
Yeah. So my original career was actually in business development. And I worked in the wireless industry, and I worked in real estate a little bit. I worked in financial services. And what I realized in that was that I didn't really love sales per se, but I really enjoyed building relationships with people. And so about 22 years ago, I was actually home with my kids. I had two daughters that I stayed home and raised for about 10 years.
Oh,
And I was approached about a company that was forming in Los Angeles. That was a fashion company, still is. And I decided to get involved with them. And I built a team with them of now we're at about 300.
wow.
And the company at the time was very, um, really great about investing in their salespeople in terms of personal development, business development, professional development, all that kind of stuff. And I learned a ton there. And what I learned a lot about was healthy and unhealthy business cultures and, just leading people, motivating, mentoring, coaching, all those kinds of things. And was very fortunate to work with a couple of different coaches and consultants that the company hired for different things. And as a result, during COVID, I decided to take this See Me profiling tool that I'd been using with my team of 300 and start making it available to other businesses and organizations to help them with recruitment and employee engagement and employee retention. So that's kind of how I got where I am now. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, it makes so much sense, right? Where you've covered such a range of different areas building up on a business development point of view, because it's a communication side, it's building relationships with other clients, it's speaking to new people, it's learning the middle ground between certain people, because, some people aren't the easiest to get on with as well, for sure,
Hmm.
especially in different cultures as well. So over that time as well, I know that's not an easy journey, especially building a team of 300 people. I mean, what was the kind of biggest challenges you come across over that time as well? And how did you cope with it?
That's a good question. I think probably one of the biggest challenges what is referred to as imposter syndrome, and I think uh, really believing in one's own abilities and talents and gifts it is hard. I think we tend to take for granted the things we're good at, and we think, oh, everybody can do that. And the truth is, everybody can't do that. And so I think kind of growing into the person I am today in terms of, being a strong leader and being a good connector and a good, keeper of culture, being able to give wise counsel to companies and individuals. I think that might have been one of the bigger challenges was just
Mm.
growing into that confidence.
Mm, for sure. And at what point of that did you think, okay, I'm going to go and start my own business? I'm working for someone helping build a business now. At what point did you think, okay, I'm going to actually go and start by myself? Because that's a big step as well. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Mm,
I think what was really the catalyst for that was how much I enjoyed the people side of that business. That business is in the fashion industry. And what I loved the most about it was the coaching and mentoring and leading of fashion stylists that work for the company. And so I think my interest in that led to the interest in the behavioral profiling aspect. And once I got interested in doing that and did that with some of that team, then I had people, friends and colleagues who asked me about it and said, would you do this for our company? And so it kind of grew from there. And I also think I just, after, doing what I've done for 22 years in that other industry, I think I was really ready for a new challenge. And it was definitely a challenge to
yeah.
just start from scratch.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not the easiest jump line. I mean, because you basically are working by yourself. If something goes wrong, it's all down to you, right? And how did you
Yeah.
find that transition as well? Going to start
Um,
on completely by yourself, a new challenge for you as well.
yeah, I think I wrote a simple business plan and I really leveraged the relationships that I have. Like I feel I'm a strong connector and I
Mm,
don't want to say networker because I don't really like that term, but just I love to connect with people and
yeah.
I feel like I've never met a stranger. I always make a friend wherever I go and
Mm,
because I genuinely like people and I kind of dug into what my personal why was in terms of how I wanted to impact the world. And I came up with the idea of wanting to promote and create and curate connection and relationships between people and communities to help the world be a more harmonious and peaceful place. And it starts with, one person at a time, where you are working with someone and helping them to become self-aware through the profiling process. And then you help them to become aware of others through working with teams. And then you provide cultural awareness, which, all has an effect in terms of just creating greater cohesiveness and better communication and really understanding between people. I think there's so little understanding going on in the world today.
yeah.
And I think if people would stop and listen and be a little bit more self-aware and then, you know, be more other oriented, I think things could be better in that regard.
Yeah. I completely agree. I completely agree. And that's why I'm assuming you're quite busy where the business model in these days, especially with the social media, with all the technology happening as well, people quite stuck in their own space. Because I'm assuming with your model, it kind of opens up difficult situations or conversations that wouldn't happen before then. I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I think if I understand what you're asking, I think
Mm,
um, one of the things has been working with executive teams and boards and helping with some communication between those two. And then
right.
also with executive team and their other employees, if you will, and helping to facilitate understanding. Like sometimes I think if an executive leader hears something from one of their employees, it might be different than if they hear it from someone who's kind of an outsider.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
um, yeah, I don't know if that answers what you were getting at,
Yeah,
but
no, completely agree. No, I completely agree. It'd be interesting. It'd probably teach me a few things as well, actually. Be interesting to hear your business model. Like, how does it work? If you were to summarize your business, how does it work? How do you go into teams and help benefit the company to help with, them being more efficient or help with, going? to scale their business in a more efficient way?
Yeah, so it's really a 6 month or a year-long program that I've created. And what it starts out with is going through kind of defining the vision of the organization and then individually profiling each member of their team. And it can be a whole company, it can be just an executive team, it can be just a department. I'm working with some nonprofits as well and going through and doing the color profiling exercise with them. And then I do a one-on-one with each person where we kind of unpack their results and help them to become more self-aware and see where their strengths are, where their areas for development might be, what their talents are in terms of what they bring to a team, what their individual strengths are, those kinds of things. And this particular profile actually it doesn't use labels. It doesn't use names for things. It uses color. So there's no sort of judgment associated with that. So it's not like an assessment that says, oh, you're a dominant or you're compliant or this or that. It's just, you're just a color. So there's no value associated with that. It makes it very clean. And then after we do that, then I take the results to the executive team and we formulate a plan to do either 6 months or a year of monthly cohort calls of where we take 4 to 6 people from the team and I lead a call every month with them based around a different subject that helps them with, like, for example, generational differences or um, understanding other people's communication style when they're under pressure or stress, or just various things like that. And we do those monthly, and that helps really, really helps sort of create a really good sense of camaraderie among the team because people really get to know each other well, and they talk about things that they wouldn't normally talk about at work just by virtue of the fact that they don't have time or it's not brought up or whatever. So, and then at the end of that, usually what we'll do is we'll evaluate and say, do we need to reengage and you want to, do another year? And we can, shift the focus to whatever that organization might be needing.
Wow, that is really interesting. I mean, in terms of business, it's almost like you're getting the business to come together. You're getting the teams to bode well together. Because at the end of the day, if you have chemistry with the team, and any business will say it as well, if you have chemistry with the team, you're going to want to work harder. You're going to want to grow. You're going to want to, help the hiring manager that you're dealing with as well. So you can see
Mhm.
how that benefits a business. Because it's not like with recruitment, you find a new leader, for example, for a company. You actually help bring together the existing team to help with the growth or help, to help with the revenue in the business, which
Mhm.
sounds, correct me if I'm wrong,
Yeah.
but it seems like that's the way your business model helps benefit businesses.
Yeah, I do have one client that I work with strictly for recruiting, and I do
Mm.
when before they make an offer, I do the profile with that person, and then I give them the results so they can see how they will fit with their existing team.
Oh,
But other than that, it's more about creating cultures where people want to come to work, where they feel valued, where they feel seen and understood and heard, and as I said, valued. And that's what creates kind of that secret sauce or that magic within an
yeah,
organization where people will, there's so many studies that have been done that show that people will work for far less money if they're working in a place where they really feel
yeah,
seen and valued. And it's really not about the money, it's about
yeah.
contribution.
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And in that time, there must be some people that you come across that don't like changing. You get certain people that are kind of stuck in their own ways. They want to stick in their own lane and they don't want to change. Has there been any barriers on that side when you've tried to deal with these teams and you've got people that don't want to actually change from the way they've been working currently?
Well, what's interesting about that is that the See Me color profile that I use, it uses 4 different colors, and every person who takes the profile will come out with 2 sort of dominant colors. And that gives me so much information about them in terms of their communication style, how they think, what is their motivation, what drives their behavior. And so it's really helpful because when you have somebody who might be a little bit more resistant, you can figure out why that might be and dig a little deeper and be able to find a way to communicate with them that they'll hear. So, and that's really what I do with the teams too, is teach people how to best communicate with their colleagues so that that person will actually hear what they're saying, whether it's in writing, whether it's, verbal a conversation, whether it's in an email. And so I think the insights it provides are really profound in terms of helping people to adjust their own behavior to be able to communicate with someone who is a different color preference or a different personality, if you will.
Wow. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. And then it's almost like what you're going to need in businesses these days when you've got so many barriers and things going on that hiring managers realistically don't understand what the team's thinking. So I'm assuming it's kind of like you speak to each person in the team and match it to their working model as well. I'm assuming it sounds quite complex, but it makes sense. But is it every single level in the business, or is it just one particular team?
It can be whatever the client would like it to be. It can be, just an executive level team, just a C-suite.
Okay.
It can be a particular department, like, it can
Mm,
be the marketing department or the, whatever.
yeah.
It can be used across an entire organization. And what it does that's really nice is it gives people a common language to understand each other with. And I can even do with internal email, we can even provide a signature that shows the person's primary colors and a few things about them that to keep in mind. So as someone is getting an email from someone else, they might say, "Oh, I've got to remember this person's very red, so I need to get to the point and not give them, a whole lot of detail. I need to just kind of bottom line it for them." The other thing that I do sometimes that's really fun is I create like a wall graphic with information about each person, their primary colors, and then I'll have like 5 characteristics about them, and then 5 tips for communicating with them. And then organizations will hang those on the wall outside somebody's office. So before you walk into that office, you're reminded, oh, yeah, this person is high green. I need to make sure that I have my very empathetic, caring, sensitive, persona with me when I walk into this office versus and I need to listen very carefully to this person because they need to be heard and those kinds of things. So it's really helpful in that way too.
Yeah, I was going to say that is a really smart model. Like, really smart model, really. So it's interesting as well in terms of the market from your side. Is there, well, in recruitment, for example, a big impact is AI and the way that's going. Is your model impacted by AI much? Because it doesn't seem like there's many areas that from a robot or AI tools would be able to take that over. But how would that impact your area of the business?
I think that the it can take it can use the best of what AI offers, if that makes sense, because the profiling system is done with an algorithm. So it's extremely accurate. People when they go through it, they're like, "This is describing me absolutely perfectly. How did it know in a 10-minute assessment? How did
Wow.
it know that this is who I am and this is,
Mm.
what motivates me?" And so it's that use of technology and AI, I think, that's really helpful. And I think probably just with efficiencies within the business, but I don't think that AI would ever be able to replace a person actually having
Yeah.
that one-on-one. There's a study that shows that there's a huge difference between like what you and I are doing right now, or FaceTiming, or and actually being in someone else's presence and looking them in the eye and being physically there in
Mm.
front of them. There's something that happens physiologically when that happens, and that can't really ever be replaced. So I don't know if that helps, but
Yeah. No, definitely, I completely agree. Because end of the day, like what myself and you do is we're talking to each other, and people buy off people. People don't buy really off a robot. You're right. Like it can help, and it is efficient with particular things, and stuff can be automated, or it can help your business grow in particular ways. But the people side of business, you're not going to be able to get rid of. That you're
Yeah.
always going to need that. Humans buy off humans. They're not going to be like, oh, I want to speak to a robot to buy this. It just wouldn't
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah. And I think, I know I have a friend who
Yeah.
uses AI as sort of like a therapist, and she'll type in, here's what's going on in my relationship, and, what should I make of this, or how should I handle that? And it's
Um,
really fascinating what the results that she gets or the responses
yeah.
that she gets. But I think at the end of the day, there's nothing that's going to be able to replace human connection.
Hmm.
And I think that it's even more necessary now and more needed in a world today where, AI is, that is all happening so quickly.
Hmm.
And also where, there's a lot of polarization in the world and,
Yeah.
uneasiness and, unknowns. And I feel like the human connection is what will kind of get us through all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I completely agree. You couldn't have said that any better as well. And it's almost like the market is gone that way. So it's just knowing how to adapt to it. So, okay, if it's, people, you can't get rid of that. Okay, go down the route of, building relationships or like say BD, how you started off, or, the relationship driven areas. Because it's going to
Mhm.
be a lot harder to take it off rather than a manual job. For example, a data entry job where it's just inputting data, they're already getting taken by AI. It's the way the market's going, and it's all the manual jobs, not like say the people element to it. You're not going to be able to get rid of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there are places where I think AI is kind of taking over, for lack of a better word, kind of the human side of, like call centers and, things like that that can use, the voice generated stuff. But I think, like we were saying, the eye to eye, that, human connection, um, I hope that that can never be replaced.
Fingers crossed. I agree that I don't think it will be. And Elizabeth, I know, of course, your background, you started in BD, you've done well in your career, and it's helped to get you where you are today, right? Anyone starting off in quite an uncertain market, what would be your advice for anyone kind of starting off in their career from experience?
Well, I think one of the things would be, I know Warren Buffett talks about this, about doing what you do really well and sticking to that one thing and kind of focusing on staying in your lane. So I think keeping it really simple and focusing on what it is you want to do without being too, diversified or scattered or trying to be all things to all people. So like my program doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but it's what I'm good at and what I do really well. And
Mm.
for the right person, it can be the perfect fit. But I can't always adapt to meet every person's need and try to be
Yeah.
everything to everyone. So I think just keeping it really simple, and then I also think just not giving up, just consistent effort over time, just working on it every day. And some days are better than others, but just not giving up and just believing in your dream and believing in your why and your purpose. And I do actually do a lot of work around helping people discover what their why is. And I know, I'm sure you're familiar with Simon Sinek's work about finding your why. I have a little bit different method that I use to get there with people, but um, it's it's super important because it creates intrinsic motivation. So that's actually another thing that I do with individuals within an organization is
Wow.
help them determine, what it is that really, why do they get out of bed in the morning? What is it that drives them at a core level? And then from there, you can help an organization form, what their mission and vision are as well.
Wow. It's really interesting. And back to even you talking about how you got to specialize in an area. It's so right because you see people that are very capped, they stay at the same level where they've done 10 different industries. But you see the people that just stick to it, same industry for 10 years, it'll be 10 times ahead. Because if you're jumping around, you're never going to specialize in the area. The consistency side, I couldn't agree anymore. It's, I mean, it's a key thing in business, in doing well in your work, in, growing as a person as well. If you don't have that behind you, you're going to be quite capped and you're going to stick in where you are. Such a
I'm sorry,
limited
say that
option.
again.
You're going to be so capped and you're going to be limited to where you want to go in your career and business or whatever it is you want to do.
Um, yeah, I think there's always room to grow and to build and to adapt. So if where I am right now and what I'm doing is my sweet spot, but in a year or two, I might find that there's, an area of it that I want to delve further into and develop more. Um, so I'm not sure if that's what you
Yeah.
kind of what you
Yeah, no,
meant, but
no, completely agree. No, I completely agree. That's what I was talking about. Like, you need to stick with it. You need to be consistent. And if that's what you want to do and
yeah.
build, then of course you're going to need to be consistent.
Well,
And
and I also think investing in yourself, like
yeah,
making sure that you have the tools and that you have the right credentials, you have,
mm,
the right training, those kinds of things to set yourself up for success. But
mm,
on the other hand, I also think people get too worried about having everything perfect before they launch. And it's important to just launch
yeah.
and just to start.
100%. 100%. But look, Elizabeth, it was an absolute pleasure having you on it today. I think, yeah, anyone that wants to understand or build their business or, help improve their business on the communications, get your team to support each other, reach out to Elizabeth Saunders at XIXBI. Absolute pleasure dealing with you, Elizabeth. And
Oh,
of
thank
course,
you.
probably jump on another call about, the why, and maybe I'll do a test as well alongside that.
Oh, I'd love to do that for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much
Perfect.
for having me.
No, no worries at all. Absolute pleasure.